first of all, Andy, welcome back to Australia. How long has it been?
Thank you. It's great to be back. Well, actually, it's about 2 years since I was last here, but it was the first time I've been back since I flew, and the reception's been wonderful. The response and warmth of everyone here to my flight has just been fantastic.
Well, excuse the pun, but has your feet hit the ground since you come back from your space flight in May?
Oh yeah, yeah. I made a point to take a little vacation after the flight, a couple of weeks after the flight, just relax and take it easy, which I think I needed to do because we'd had 10 months of intensive training.
So it's 10 months from the time that they announced that you'll be on the flight until the time that you're actually launched.
Yeah, it was about that. Yeah, and that was 10 months of training for that specific flight, having already performed a couple of years of generalized training to become an astronaut.
Right, I understand. How did you break the news to your family that you were going on the flight? Was there any special surprise or?
Well, I had been a professional astronaut for a couple of years, so they knew I was going to be getting a flight soon. I think the more interesting point is actually when I was selected to become an astronaut, that back in 1992, I called them up and said I was working at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory at the time, and California. I said I'm going to be leaving Jet Propulsion Laboratory. I've taken a position with NASA. And what are you going to be doing with NASA? They asked. I said, well, actually, I'm a shuttle astronaut.
Amazing.
There's sort of this rather quiet pause at the end of the phone as they slowly sort of assimilated it. But then they were really very excited by it.
I'm digressing a little bit from the questions, but it's sounding very much like things have changed since the days of Apollo when you needed to be a test pilot to be an astronaut. It's a wider range.
Yeah, it is. We still take pilots into the astronaut corps, and they're the ones that primarily land the vehicle. But each flight has a couple of pilots and usually four mission specialists. So the mission specialists are dedicated to running all the facilities on board, the payloads, running all the experiments, operating the robotic arm, if necessary, doing an EVA that's going outside in spacesuit.
So you're trained to go outside as well?
Oh yeah, trained in.
I understand. Okay. One of the questions I want to ask is, what did you feel when you look back at that planet? Like, obviously, the astronauts that have already been in space have said something to you about, oh, the colours are great or whatever.
Oh
But
yeah, and I've seen an awful lot of pictures of it. But I do remember the first opportunity I got to see it. It was not long after we had main engine cutoff. We'd just gone through 8.5 minutes of the most exhilarating ride that anyone could ever have. And we reached orbit. My job was to go up to one of the windows and take a photograph of the external tank we jettisoned, which was floating behind us. So I did that, and I remember just literally gasping at the view and saying, "My God, you should see the view!" And it was breathtaking. You see this blue ocean with lovely white clouds in it. It all looks sort of spherical. It's like a sphere. You don't see a lot of depth to it because it's so far away.
right,
And then you see this thin band of tenuous atmosphere surrounding it. Then this black region of space. I mean, but space is really black. It's a blackness that you have to see to believe.
obviously, the reflection of the light of the Earth would blank out the stars.
Yes, we couldn't see stars because that was daylight. When you come around to the night side, which you do, 16 times a day,
Yeah.
um, then once your eyes adjust, you see this incredible panorama of stars.
Right. What were your responsibilities for this particular flight? What sort of things did you learn from the flight?
I was payload commander for the flight, so I was responsible for the hardware of all the satellites that we had and the various experiments that we flew. And I had to operate the remote manipulator arm, had to operate systems to activate the satellites that we were deploying, open the payload bay doors, activate the space hab module that we had. It was a very busy time.
Do you get time to yourself while you fly?
Not really. After all, there's 6 people on board in a fairly confined space, so uh, you're never alone. But of course, uh, you're working together as a team, so you're not supposed to be alone. You have to sort of support each other in all the functions.
I've been watching the newspapers coming from the United States and around the world, and a lot of people seem to be wondering these days what does spaceflight do for the average person in the street that pays the taxes to allow the astronauts in the shuttle to fly?
Yeah, there's always a lot of talk about the space program and so on. And if you look at the 30 years that we've had the space program, um, what have we got out of the space program? Well, we've got global communications, we've got weather satellites, we've got satellite television, we've got cellular phones, and now we've got this extraordinary capability called GPS, which have something in smaller than a handheld calculator that tells you where you are anywhere on the Earth. An incredible navigation capability for ships, for aircraft, for hikers. And if you just think that's what we've had over the space programmers we've had over the last 30 or 40 years, just imagine what the next 30 or 40 years are going to be like.
Right, I understand. What's next for you? Will you get a flight,
Oh
say, to the
yeah,
space station?
I'm a permanent member of the astronaut office, so now I go back into the pool of astronauts awaiting reassignment, um, and I expect to be assigned to a flight again in a couple of years' time. I don't know what flight that will be, but since we are moving towards construction and assembly of the space station, it wouldn't surprise me if I was involved in that in some capacity.
Right, so you're a highly qualified electrical engineer, so they'd use your skills there.
No, I'm a mechanical engineer, and that's
Mechanical
what they
engineer.
would use. Schools, yeah.
Right, so there's a good chance that you'll get to go.
Oh yeah, well, I will fly again. It's just a
Right.
question of when and then what flight. I don't know what it is at this point.
How many space flights do you think would be in your career?
I don't know. There's not really an age limit to flying in space. After all, one of the senior astronauts in our office, Troy Musgrave, is going to fly next month, and he's approaching 60 years of age. Um, you can fly every 2 or 3 years, and as long as you can pass a flight physical and have good health, you can continue to fly. I don't at this point know how long I will remain in the program and continue to fly, but certainly my intention is to be a career astronaut and to continue this role.
And that's what you wanted to do since you're a student.
Oh yeah, I think most of the astronauts, if you ask them when did they first get interested in it, it's always an interest that's laid down at an early age. In my case, watching the Apollo program, and but it was really only until recent years that I realised that I'd actually bring it to fruition and become an astronaut.
Right. I've got one final question. It's
Yeah,
on Australia's role in space. Do you see any opportunities for Australia and where we fit into the picture of
well, there's
things?
a lot of opportunities if Australia wish to. It's a question of whether people of the country want to be a participant in the space program. Australia has geography that makes it uniquely suited as an emergency landing site for crew return vehicles from the space station. Um, and that's something Australia can contribute to enormously. Its geography actually suits it to being a launch site for rockets. I mean, for all kinds of applications, because it's got this near equatorial region. It's very good for a launch site. Australia could, if the people so wished, uh, make a very large contribution in those areas. And if they were to do that, the returns to Australia would actually be very significant, because I think those activities would provide a source of inspiration and motivation for young people to become involved in technical areas in engineering and science. And the skill that they would develop by being involved in these projects would disseminate out into the rest of the society and would have a profoundly beneficial effect on the Australian culture.
Right. For the young Australian people that are listening to us now, what would you recommend if they wanted to follow in your footsteps and become an ex-Australian astronaut?
You need to study, you need good credentials, professional credentials in engineering or science. Um, you need tenacity. I mean, they usually only accept 20 or so astronauts from a pool of 2,000 or more applicants, so you have to be pretty tenacious. And I would recommend that if you have dreams, no matter what they are, in fact, even if it's not being an astronaut, no matter what there is in the world that appeals to you, I think you should be true to yourself and seek it out and go for it, because it will unlock doors and opportunities that you can't even begin to imagine.
That's right. There's lots of opportunities to work in the space industry, not just being an astronaut.
Oh, well, yes, absolutely.
Right.
Yes.
Andy, once again, welcome back to Australia. Thanks for your time.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you very much.